Greetings and salutations. I'm the fallen angel Christopher Daniels.
This is NXT superstar Dexter Loomis.
This is the former intellectual savior of the masses, now known as Aaron Stevens, your NWA third-degree national champion.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you, the people of YouTube.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries, the work of a hard-working fellow by the name of Greg Morgan, 10-year veteran here on the YouTube scene.
You know, this guy who runs this YouTube channel, he's a 10-year YouTube vet.
I know you've been a fan for like 40 years. I've only been doing it for 30, so I guess we're fans together there for 10 of it.
This is Darby Allen, and you're watching the Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentary. Yeah, you better watch this channel. You better watch all the videos.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
Check them out.
If you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
You're welcome.
Happy Saturday once again, everyone, and welcome to your September 19th edition of the Winged Eagle podcast here on the Good Mic Work Commentaries YouTube channel. And we got a loaded one today. I apologize again, like I say every single week, for my time fluctuating. This time, we're up at about 2:30 in the afternoon here for me, local time, in San Diego. And thanks for being here. We got a lot to talk about because it was a loaded week of wrestling in terms of the wrestling shows and the wrestling results. And we got a fair amount of news to get into as well. And the G1 kicked off last night. I stayed up late and watched that and watched all the matches and had a pretty good time doing that as I was prepping for my podcast last night. So we should have a pretty jam-packed hour and a half to 2-hour episode here, and looking forward to it. Let me make sure I can be heard and seen real quick. All right. Cool. We might have a little bit of some audio changes and some echoing in here right now. As you can see behind me, the background has changed ever so slightly because I am in the process of moving. I'm moving in just over a week, so started to break everything down. And as a matter of fact, this coming Monday for my Raw review will be pretty much the last review like in this setting. It's kind of an end of an era. Been in here for 3 years doing live streams. It's been a lot of fun, but I'm moving to a much bigger and better place, and I'm going to have one sweet-ass studio to broadcast from coming up here in just a couple of weeks. But for now, it's going to look a little bit different, and next weekend for Clash of Champions and the Winged Eagle podcast 1 week from today, it's pretty much going to be me and like a blank white wall. I might put an under construction sign up or something like that, but it's going to look different in here for the next couple of streams until I get to the new place, get set up, and all that good stuff. So you'll see in the next 3 to 4 live streams some different looking changes and things like that, but it's just temporary, and we're going to have a pretty sweet setup here in a few weeks, and I'm very, very excited for that. So just wanted to update you on that because 1 week from Monday, I will not be up here live streaming for Raw because that's moving day. So I'll be up here this Monday, but the week after, I will not be. And it looks like, because I just checked out the Raw preview, that Monday looks interesting. We got a few more rematches again, which kind of sucks. But we'll get into all that as we discuss the menu today. I guess what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in order here. Well, I guess we'll start off. I'll give you guys some results of the G1 Climax Night 1 that kicked off last night. Then we'll get into a couple of news tidbits and wrestling news. We'll preview Monday Night Raw. Then we'll get into Wednesday night because there was 2 really great wrestling shows on Wednesday, especially Dynamite. Just a phenomenal show, almost from top to bottom, and I really, really enjoyed the main event. Haven't had a chance really to talk about that yet because it really set the world on fire this week, but I'll give you all of my opinions on the great parking lot fight that took place on Dynamite. We'll talk about maybe NXT even moving over to Tuesdays if we think that might be a better option for them, and we'll discuss last night's Smackdown, which saw Bayley lay down another beatdown on Sasha Banks. We saw Big E return. We saw more of Jey Uso being a complete blubbering idiot, being completely clueless to the fact that his cousin is going to absolutely murder him at the Clash of Champions. And speaking of the Clash, we will preview that entire card, which right now we have about 6 matches announced, and there will be at least 7 because there's a number 1 contenders match set for Raw on Monday. So that's what we got going on this afternoon. Let me cruise over here to the chat and say hi to everybody. Who's turning 30? Stone Cold, you turned 30 in a few weeks. Man, that's a big one. I remember 30. Make a will. What's going on, How Easy? Good to see you, Devlin. Aloha to you. We need to get MJF on here. We could. Yeah, he's $500. Thanks for the $5, dude. Greg, hope all is well. Dean Malenko confirmed for the Jericho Cruise. Wow, I have not looked at the updated lineup. So far, I've not been thrilled with the lineup. It hasn't been that great. Like Bubba Dudley and Candice Michelle and just Ted DiBiase, I think. Nobody that I'm like really chomping at the bit to meet or anything. Dean Malenko, however, I love Dean Malenko. When I was thinking, this would have been all the way back in 1996, when I toyed with the idea of going to wrestling school, and I sent out a couple of letters and got some information. Malenko's school was one of the ones that I was talking to in Florida. And we all know that Malenko apparently is suffering from Parkinson's as well. So his health will be deteriorating. And he was number one on the PW 500, I remember one year back in the 90s. I mean, he was just a hell of a worker. And it would be great to meet him. I don't think I ever have. I think I've seen him, but I've never met him. Back when he was in WWE in the Attitude Era. But that's cool. Another name added. I'm hoping that the lineup gets beefed up a little bit more because last time was pretty good. And good to see you in here as well, James and Beetle and Z-Man and John and Jet the Hawk and Corey. All right, let's start rocking and rolling here because I do have sort of a time limit. I can only be up here for a maximum of 2 hours, and then I got to get out of here because I got to go to work. And it's going to be a busy week. It's going to be entirely crazy busy next few days. So that's why you're probably only going to get me for, the podcast and Monday nights until everything settles down in a couple of weeks when I'm all settled in. But I also want to shout out these gentlemen and ladies on Patreon, the benefactors of the channel. Appreciate everything, as always. Apron Bump Podcast and Alan Carter, Scotty Cura, Brandon Yelverton, Michael Tong, Nick Musser, K-Dog's Kennel, Ryan Y, Devlin Husband, the Double Z TV, Zach, Steve Myers, Brett Luckfield, John Redifer, Claudio Clavedetcher, Jordan Carr, Daniel Rodriguez. Barry is here as well, Josiah Blevins. Barry actually has a Patreon-sponsored review coming up next month in early October. Josiah Blevins, Mr. Steve, Scott Moss, Domanian, Elwell, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Naveed, Keith Salyers, Nathan Walker, Blake Moran, and Alex Reynolds. Appreciate everything, guys, and anybody who pledges $10 a month or more or has got $200 or more lifetime pledges, you are also shouted out in the description below, and thank you for helping us keep this channel growing, keeping the ball rolling. I appreciate it. All right, so we're going to get into news, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about the G1. So I kind of forgot that was kicking off last night. It wasn't until I sat down and started, getting into my notes. I'm like, okay, it's time to start getting this podcast ready for today. I'm like, holy shit, I forgot that that's on. I saw it on Twitter, hopped right over to New Japan World, pulled it up about 10 minutes before the show started, and was able to watch all these matches. So in the A block in night one, we had a pretty stacked card for this, and these were fun. I guess, how many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, just 5 matches, 5 main matches and kind of an opener. Really cool to see a crowd, an audience there. I mean, they were pretty packed in. They were sitting close and everything to each other. They're all wearing the face masks and everything. And just to, the Japan audience was probably the closest thing to an empty arena audience that you'll ever get based on how they behave during matches and how quiet they are and everything. So, it's baby steps, but to hear them there and just to hear some fans, even though they don't make a ton of noise and they don't go ape shit like the fans here in the U.S. do, just to see them there and to hear them react and just to have that environment back, just felt good to watch. And the little bit that I have watched of Japan lately, it's been nice to see them doing some larger crowds. AEW is doing extremely small ones, but it was kind of cool. It just felt like things, aside from everybody in the crowd wearing face masks, it did have this feeling of normalcy. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when the fans were there. That was awesome. Hopefully we'll get to do that again here one day in the United States. But anyway, just to run through some of these matches here, Will Ospreay defeated Takahashi. That one was decent, but not great. Tai Chi went over Jeff Cobb, which surprised me because Jeff Cobb is such a beast. I was watching him wrestle, and I just started having all these dream match scenarios in my head with guys from the past. And one name that came to my mind was Dr. Death Steve Williams. I would love to see Jeff Cobb take on Dr. Death when Dr. Death was in his prime. I think that would be a fun fucking match. Throw Masato Tanaka in there just for shits and gigs, Minoru Suzuki defeated Tomohiro Ishii in a match that you would expect from the two of those guys. My head hurt, my neck hurt, and my entire body hurt and just ached after I watched this match. After I watched that match, a complete war. So that was a lot of fun. Jay White defeated Shingo Takagi, and I would love. I've been a big fan of Jay White for a while, and a lot of people say, oh, he's kind of bland. He doesn't offer much. He wouldn't be any good here in the United States, and I think he would. I don't think he would be good in WWE. I think if he went to NXT, he would have a chance, but again, he'd probably be second fiddle to guys like Damian Priest and shit, where I think Jay White would be fantastic is AEW. I think he'd be great there. He could be their version of maybe like a Seth Rollins or whatever. I think he's just ridiculously underrated. Maybe he lacks a little bit in some aspects of his charisma and promo cutting. Maybe you can make that argument, but in terms of, just him being just a good professional wrestler, I like him a lot, and I would love to see him make the trip over here to the States and be all elite one day. But probably just there. I don't think I'd want to see him in WWE, but I think AEW would be great. The main event was Kota Ibushi taking on Kazuchika Okada. This one was good because you knew it could go either way, and it was another brutal one. And Ibushi got the victory here. Cut a promo after the match. I wish I understood what he was saying, but I did not. And as a matter of fact, another thing that did kind of suck about this is there was no English commentary. I'm guessing because of the COVID and stuff. No Kevin Kelly or anything like that. So that kind of sucked, but I was still able to enjoy the show and watch it. And much like some WWE shows lately, it wasn't as long. Like some of those New Japan shows and stuff can go all into the hours of the morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning, to where I can't even stay awake for it anymore. This ended for me around 3:30 in the morning, 3:45 maybe, something like that. So I was able to actually watch the whole thing and I didn't fade and die out. So that's one benefit to being on the West Coast, is that if you are a night owl like myself, you can't stay up and watch a lot of Japanese wrestling, and that was fun. So I enjoyed watching that last night. I always enjoy kicking back and watching middle of the night New Japan wrestling. It never disappoints, and last night was no different. I'm going to do my best to try to check out night 2, which I think is tonight, and there's a 2-day break, and then we go into more. So G1's underway, and we'll be keeping our eye on that, and I'm sure we'll be seeing some good matches out of that. It's good stuff. I also want to talk about, since we got that out of the way, let me answer this super chat first from Barry. What's up, dude? $2, thanks. I hope we can see Bayley attack Sasha every week. That was pretty good last night. I liked that, because you have to hold this off. I thought, we talked about in the last couple of weeks, that I thought they might be doing Bayley and Sasha at Clash and then maybe having a blow off at Hell in the Cell. What they're going to wind up doing here is having the first match in the Cell, which means you need to drag this out because it's not until late October. So for her to continue to attack Sasha selling the injury, maybe taking her a few weeks to get back and cleared to get back in the ring, I think is the right way to do it here. And last night's beatdown was pretty good. She didn't get to fully Pillmanize her neck, but she came close. And at some point, Sasha's going to have to turn the tables here, though. But I think they're going to stretch that one out until the 25th, because Hell in the Cell was bumped up 1 week. It was originally, I think, November 1st. It's October 25th now. So they still got a full month to put this together and put these two ladies inside of the Cell. And there's absolutely no way they cannot do this in the Cell, right? It's got to be there. So I'm looking forward to that, because I thought Sasha and Charlotte was a great Cell match. But Charlotte won, right? That was when Sasha was champ, and she still has she's never successfully defended a women's title, which is a stat that still blows my mind. And I even can't believe in my head that's true, but it is. And of course, she came up short, I believe, in that Hell in the Cell match a few years back with Charlotte, right? So she needs to win and beat the shit out of Bayley in the Cell. I think she'll do it. Good to see you, Dan Price. What's up? Uncle Greg is here for Adam. Happy you are able to join us as well. And Vontae Page, good to see you. Has been a long time. Where have you been, man? Well, you're here on a good week, because we got lots to get into. Let's talk about a little bit of wrestling news, because there were some interesting comings and goings and denials and things like that this week. One of them has been reported by WrestleVotes, who has always been pretty kind of accurate on Twitter when it comes to breaking scoops and shit like that. Well, they had sent out a tweet earlier in the week kind of hinting at a major star saying that they're definitely not going to re-sign their contract when it comes up. And a lot of names were floating around, the one being Ricochet. Ricochet was the one that a lot of fans jumped on. Oh my God, if there's any guy that needs to leave, it's him. Ricochet has then come out and denied that, saying no, he enjoys being in WWE. But based on the consistency of WrestleVotes and how they do tend to be right about a lot of these things, I thought it would be fun to at least speculate who you guys think, if there is somebody, because there's somebody. I mean, it's not that much of a surprise to hear that a talent is saying to himself, you know what, or herself, you know what, when my contract is up, I'm out of here. that's not that much of a stretch of the imagination to, be able to think of, because we know a lot of people are probably somewhat disgruntled, and now they see that there's competition out there. They see there's another place to go and be seen, and they can get out from underneath this controlling, crazy dictatorship in WWE that's just out of control in a lot of cases. And even though Ricochet has denied this, you can think about some other big names, and a big name came to my mind that I actually would like to see leave WWE. I wouldn't mind it at all. And that's Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens came in. He's had a hell of a run there. NXT champion, even Universal champion. He's been involved some big things and some big angles. But at the same time, he's a guy that could almost be guaranteed to be on top in the world title picture all the time, anywhere else he goes, whether that be Impact or AEW. And I would love to see Kevin Owens go to AEW. I would love to see Ricochet go to AEW. I would love to see Ricochet leave, get signed by AEW, then AEW bring in Will Ospreay as well, and you do that match on Dynamite or do that match in an AEW ring or on pay-per-view or something like that. That would be great. But Owens was one name. I can almost believe that Ricochet, because a lot of guys, too, you have to think about what their mentality is their goal just to be a champion and to apply their craft and get better as a wrestler and a professional, and and they're all about that? Or are they all about being somewhere where they can wrestle but also make a really good living? And maybe some guys are okay with never being world champion, because I don't know if Ricochet necessarily is going to see any sort of gold in the WWE. I thought he had an excellent chance in NXT. He was North American champion. I think he definitely could have been NXT champion, but on Raw or SmackDown, he's never going to be anything there at all. So if he's okay with that, that's still a pretty good amount of money that he's going to be making annually there, and he's going to be able to take care of himself and his family. But, if he wants to leave and go somewhere and really spread his wings, he could go to AEW. He could go work internationally again once, all that is possible. So I would love to see Ricochet leave, but at the same time, I can kind of understand why he would stay. But Owens is a guy that I would love to see go to AEW. I think he would be he'd be a big asset to them and put another big name, big contender on their roster. I suppose he'd have to go back to being Kevin Steen, but I don't think that would matter. I don't know. Who do you guys think? Like, if there is one, Owens doesn't expire till 2024. Well, shit. If there is another guy that would, that's like to his level that you would like to see jump, like, who do you think it would be? Owens, I had no idea his contract status. He was just one of the names that I was thinking of. I'm like, man, I'd love to see him take off and go somewhere else. Mustafa Ali is another good idea, although I don't feel like he's on the level of like an Owens or anything like that, because he's been so sparingly featured. It just sucks. Aleister Black is another one. I think Aleister Black, though, is going to stick around. I mean, Zelina is there. I feel like Aleister Black has been poorly used since NXT for sure, but not as poorly used as some others. I mean, don't forget, he was undefeated on Raw for like a year. It's not like he's been treated like shit. It's just he was a bigger deal in NXT, and that's the case with every NXT star. Sometimes it's just a matter of them not even coming close to recapturing the magic, or just not feeling like as big of a deal as they were in NXT. And I don't know why the main roster does that to people, but I hope that there is another semi-big name that could go to AEW, that the fans wouldn't say, oh, just another WWE cast-off. Somebody big enough that you would say, oh yeah, any wrestling company would want to take that guy. Like Rusev is like that. Anybody would want Rusev. Anybody should want to try to sign Rusev. So for him coming in, it's not like, boy, all they're doing is sign WWE guys. No, he's Rusev, or he's Miro, excuse me. Miro has value. And I think Kevin Owens or a Ricochet or somebody like that would as well. But I hope there's at least, one or maybe two other semi-big names that leave the company in the near future, just to remind WWE that they no longer have wrestlers by the balls. They can no longer treat them like absolute garbage and then expect them just to re-sign. They have options now, and just that alone, I think, might help guys being treated better, especially ones that are coming up nearing the ends of their contracts and stuff. WWE and WWE could always trick them. Oh, let's just push him for 6 months, make him think we give a shit about him. He'll re-sign, and then we'll put him back in the toilet. They do that a lot too, and we've seen that before from them and examples of that before. So I hope a couple more guys do bail out of there and get out of WWE. I was not aware of Owens' contract situation, so it doesn't sound like it'll be him, but I hope it's somebody decent, leaving and going and helping somebody else become a better promotion instead of doing nothing in the promotion that they're in. Speaking of people sticking around WWE, Rey Mysterio has officially signed his deal with WWE. He's been in negotiations for a while, including with AEW. Apparently, AEW even matched WWE's offer, but as we expected, Rey is sticking around. He signed a 3-year deal to stay with the WWE, and you know that Dominic is a big reason for that. Now, if Rey didn't have a son that wasn't wrestling or anything, I don't think he'd be in WWE right now, but the fact that Dominic is being trained to wrestle for a long time, Rey wants him in the WWE. That's the best place for him to learn. It's got the Performance Center. It's got all of that great Hall of Fame talent and coaches and facility at his disposal to continue to learn and get better. Now that Rey has not clearly trained him well enough as it is, because the kid is great, it's probably a better environment for a 23-year-old kid to be in than going to AEW, where, yeah, he'll have plenty of people he can learn from, but, you know, being in that WWE system with Rey and all of his history there and having all those other guys there, it's probably just the best place for him. So Rey sticking around in WWE was not surprising to us at all. It is official now. He's there for 3 more years, and my God, it amazes me how decent and good Rey Mysterio, or very good Rey Mysterio, still is in the ring at his age. It's mind-blowing, but glad he's sticking around. Should be fun, and that might be his last contract there. I mean, at some point, you're going to have to start talking about Hall of Fame and shit like that for Rey, considering how long he's been doing it, but it could now give us an opportunity to see a lot of not only Dominic and Rey tag team matches, but maybe a Dominic and Rey feud. If Rey's sticking around for 3 years, that's a lot of time to work with there. And we joked about this months ago when Dominic first started appearing on TV. And I mentioned when Samoa Joe was messing with Rey and his family that Dominic turns heel and joins Samoa Joe based on how they kind of look alike. Although Dominic's a lot taller and thinner than Joe, he's big, you know, and so maybe he finds an on-screen mentor like that instead of his father. But, you know, now that we've seen Dominic in the ring and stuff and realize how good and athletic he really is, I don't think he needs to be with somebody like Samoa Joe, but he could turn on his dad could turn on him. We might get a Rey and Dominic match. It might be something that the two of them want. Maybe just personally with them, I want to have a match against you and just say I wrestled my father or whatever. And then they can make up, you know, just like Brett and Owen did, you know, feud for a little while, make up, and then that'll be the end for Rey. I don't know. It depends on what Rey wants. When it comes to his son, WWE's probably not going to try to convince or force Rey to do anything. But if Rey's open to the idea of having a match with Dominic, it would probably be a lot like Brett and Owen, too, you know, because we remember when Owen turned on Brett and attacked him and stuff and then challenged him to a match, Brett wouldn't do it. Brett wouldn't do it until he was forced. Undertaker kind of was the same way with Kane. Like, he wouldn't strike his brother. Kane kept coming out, you know, beating him up and doing shit, and Undertaker refused to fight him until finally his hand was forced. It would probably be a situation like that, where Dominic turns into an evil little shit. Maybe Seth Rollins sinks his hooks into him or brainwashes him or something like that. He eventually turns on Rey, and Rey flat out refuses to fight him until Dominic just keeps pushing him, you know, and maybe even does something, you know, maybe puts his hands on the sister or shoves her or something, and then Rey freaks and, you know, or whatever. I don't know. Could be fun. But either way, you got 3 more years now to work with Rey and Dominic, and I think the two can do some fun stuff. So congrats to Rey. And Dominic retires Rey, maybe. Could be. And who's to say it has to be like a bad blood match? I mean, Dominic doesn't necessarily have to turn on Rey. It might have to be a babyface match. That would be weird, but, you know, maybe Dominic's like, you know, my ultimate dream would be to wrestle you or whatever. I don't know if that would work. I think you got to have Dominic turning on him. But retiring Rey Mysterio, you know, if I'm Rey, who am I going to go out to? My son's a wrestler right now. He's now had TV show main events and worked pay-per-views. He's worthy enough, and I'm, you know, letting my boy put me over as I retire. I'd be totally into that. For sure. So, yeah. Anyway, Rey sticking around. Should be fun to watch how that plays out. Speaking of people coming back to WWE or signing deals with WWE, it was reported earlier this week by PW Insider that Melina was heading back to WWE, that she had, in fact, signed a deal with the company and should be appearing on TV. They were pretty specific, too, said like within a week or so. And all the other news sites picked up on it and reported the news as well. Melina took to Facebook to deny the whole thing. So, and she went into a long, drawn-out description of why she's denying it and gave a lot of details as to why. Now, Part of me thinks that this is her just blowing smoke. I think John Morrison did the same thing as he, when he was about to come back and, oh no, I'm not re-signed with them or whatever. And maybe she's a little annoyed that the news was leaked and she wasn't ready for it to be leaked, so she's trying to downplay it or whatever. That's probably what's going on here, is that she probably is coming back, because in the denial she said never say never, and the door is definitely open to return one day, so she might have been in talks with them. It was kind of a strange story to begin with. I'm like, Melina. I know a lot of people. I'm just from an older generation, so I don't have a lot of fond memories of that generation of female wrestlers, like the Melinas and the Alicia Foxes and Kelly Kellys and all that. They just weren't for me. But I know Melina was better than most of them, and she did have some talent to her. But I still, just with me, I still lump her into the Divas group. They were more, they were more like looks. They are more TNA than actual wrestling. But with Melina, that's not the case. She worked a little bit in the NWA. She's very good. But I still don't know if she's like on the level. I think Mickie James is better than Melina. So I didn't really care either way that she was coming back, and the fact that she's now so adamantly denied this, I don't know what to make of it. And if she did come back, what would her role be? Because I don't know how old she is now, but she's getting up there. And what's her relationship these days with John Morrison? That was quite the mess back in the day when she was with Morrison and cheated on him with Batista. And I guess they're all friends now or whatever. But if you brought her in and put her on SmackDown, does that make things awkward? I don't even know what the personal situation is there between the two. There might not be one at all. It might be totally fine. I don't know. But if you were to bring Melina back, I'm not saying it's bad or anything. I'm just saying why, and what are you going to do with her? She's just going to come back in and be what Mickie James is, getting jobber entrances and botched finishes all the time, and she'll have a match with Asuka and get killed, and that's it. I don't know. But regardless of what her deal is, we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll see if she turns up on TV. Because I think if she does, it'll probably just, be out of the blue. I don't think they'll run a vignette for her or anything like that, unless she is unless she's the Carmella. And by the way, we're going to talk about SmackDown later here, but did you guys watch last night's SmackDown when they did the Mystery Woman vignette again? And it was a kind of a back shot. Now, we had all been saying that it's going to be Carmella because it looks like her in the previous ones. But the one from last night, and I don't know what people online are saying about it, that almost did not look like Carmella to me. Do you know who it looked like? It looked like Sasha Banks, because when she slowly turned her head, you could just catch a glimpse of the side of her face. And if you look up top, there's like blue hair underneath the blonde. At least I think. So that could have been the lighting. I don't know. Or maybe she's wearing a wig and it's Sasha Banks being like a stand-in for whoever this mystery woman is. Because if it does turn out to be Carmella, they made it so damn obvious at first. WWE might want to use a stand-in now to maybe throw the fans off that it's not going to be Carmella, and then it turns out to be her. But it definitely, to me, looked like Sasha Banks wearing a blonde wig. Go back and look at it. And I don't know, actually, I might be wrong about that. Does Sasha have tattoos? I don't even know. The woman did not have tattoos. So if Sasha's got any tattoos on her back, I'm probably wrong. But even in the chestal region, Carmella is very not small. And last night's Mystery Woman, it did not have the Carmella top half. So maybe it's not Carmella, or maybe, here's an idea that I had that I think would be funny. Couple of ideas. Number one, it could just be Sasha Banks, because that would be like out of the fucking blue. Like, what the hell? So that would just be funny, because who cares? But another thing that made me think of was sort of like Brodus Clay. Remember when Brodus Clay, they were running the vignettes for him, and you were made to believe that this is some big, bad, ass-kicking monster, just a mean, scary-looking guy. And then when he debuted, he came out dancing with the Funkadactyls and all that shit. So maybe... maybe they do that sort of, but they do it in a completely different way. Maybe we just see this mystery woman, very obviously, at least from the back, very attractive, elegant-looking woman, but then who debuts is like Abaddon or something like that, like just some completely different-looking person than what we saw in the vignette. I think that might be funny, like a Bertha Faye or an Awesome Kong or somebody like that. Somebody that's the complete exact opposite, of... obviously the woman that we are seeing in the vignette. So I don't know. Who do you guys think it is if it's not going to be Carmella? Because based on last night, I don't think it is anymore, because it was definitely a darker skin and things like that. Just didn't feel like it was her. I feel like it was Sasha Banks. Melina is 40. Well, she's still younger than me. Yeah, you could put Melina with Miz and Morrison. They could reform M&M, right? Because before, wasn't it Morrison and Mercury and Melina? You could do a new M&M. I'd be into that. Yeah, and she's blaming PW Insider. Yeah, Melina's not happy. I don't think any wrestlers are necessarily happy when news gets leaked that they didn't leak. Probably pisses them off. Like, if I'm signing with WWE, oh, this is going to be fun. I'm going to come back and be a surprise. And then somebody catches wind or somebody in WWE leaks it out to somebody and spills the beans. That's kind of going to piss me off, too. I'm like, oh, man. So, she's going to try to throw people off and say, oh, I'm not really signed there or whatever. So we'll see. We'll watch if she does turn up in WWE. It'll be interesting to see what she does and what her role will be. I really don't know. Before we get into the Wednesday night shows, I'm not going to spend too much time on NXT because it was an okay show, but I thought AEW was far better, and I wanted to spend some time on that. We will briefly preview, I should say, Raw for Monday night. They're going to do Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee again. I just went to WWE.com and tried to take a look at the Raw preview. They've got that match listed again with the same stipulation as last week. So I guess the stip is if Keith Lee can beat Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton is still unable to compete or is not cleared to compete at Clash, then Keith Lee will get the title shot against McIntyre. I don't think that's going to happen. That's a silly stipulation to have. If Randy Orton isn't cleared, then he'll get the title shot or whatever. And plus, if that was the case, if Lee beats Drew here and then Randy Orton is not cleared and Lee gets the title shot at Clash, that's 3 matches in less than 3 weeks that we've had between McIntyre and Keith Lee, and that is unnecessary. So based on everything going on with Drew and Orton, that's the match you need to have, and that's the match I expect. I suppose that maybe in this match, because we did get Retribution kind of sabotaging the match from last week, so maybe Randy Orton sabotages this one and announces that he's cleared and he's back and he'll be there at the Clash. I don't know. Whatever they do here on Monday, I still think Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre is going to be the match at Clash. We have an interesting number 1 contenders tag team match set for Monday. The winners, I believe, will face the Street Profits at Clash of Champions for the Raw titles. I thought they were going to do a unification deal with Cesaro and Shinsuke, but that did not come to be. So Profits will have new opponents, and they are going to be facing either the team of Andrade and Angel Garza, who have had a shit ton of dissension lately, or Seth and Buddy Murphy, or Dominic and Humberto Carrillo. Interesting tag team there. So those 3 teams will face in a triple threat on Monday. The winners face the Profits at the Clash. I'm interested to see what Dominic and Humberto can do as a team. They kind of look alike. They might be pretty good. I'm kind of rooting for them, actually. I think that's who it has to be. Seth and Buddy and Garza and Andrade all have just got a shit ton of dissension right now. Give Dominic a title shot. Why not? I'm into it. And we're also going to get Strowman taking on Dabba-Kato in the Raw Underground this week that was set up last week. And speaking of last week, apparently Pineapple Pete was one of the people around the Raw Underground ring. I thought that was very cool. He tweeted about it too. Hey, I was at Raw. Maybe I'll stop by another show before the month's over. So he might have free reign to do whatever he wants, to be on Dynamite and WWE. That's pretty crazy, but kind of cool to see him there around the ringside area. We'll see if he hops in the ring and gets his ass kicked at any point in the Underground. So that is set for this Monday, and like I said, we'll be up here doing a review as soon as the show's over. We'll briefly discuss NXT. This was a really good show. There was a couple of good matches on here, but I thought Dynamite once again kind of gave you that better just overall wrestling show, but I still enjoyed NXT very much. I was doing the split screen thing on Wednesday night as I was working around the house and getting things ready for the move. I had them both on, but both shows really only got 60 to 70% of my attention. I had to go back and watch a couple of these matches, and one of the matches I watched was the opener of NXT, Io Shirai taking on Shotzi Blackheart in a really solid women's match. I thought it was a good showcase for Shotzi, probably one of her best outings to date since she's been in NXT here, and she gave Io Shirai a hell of a match. Now, Io won, of course, and she got the win there with a very painful-looking moonsault. She demonstrated exactly how not to execute a moonsault on your opponent. Came down right on her knees, just crushing poor Shotzi. It was kind of reminiscent, sort of, to what, was it Kurt Angle did to Bob Holly? Did the big moonsault and broke Bob Holly's forearm or broke his arm when his knees came down on him like that. Kind of similar there, and I'm glad Shotzi is all right, but that was a really, really good match. And apparently next week on NXT, there's going to be a number 1 contenders battle royal to determine who will face Io Shirai for the title next, I suppose. Candice LeRae and a bunch of other women are in that. Excuse me. We had Tommaso Ciampa winning a squash match over who they are calling Desmond Troy, but I remember him as Denzel Desjardins or whatever. So he's back with a new name now, gets his ass kicked pretty handily by Tommaso Ciampa. Jake Atlas comes out. Jake Atlas, of course, got killed by Tommaso last week and challenges Ciampa to a match next week. And then later on, Ciampa even attacks poor Atlas in the parking lot. For some reason, Kyle O'Reilly is out there very upset about it and taking exception to Ciampa doing that in a parking lot. He says something like, "Come on, man, don't do it in the parking lot. Do it in the ring," which is a really interesting line considering what the main event of Dynamite was. I got a kick out of that. We had another sort of dinner with Garganos segment, but it really wasn't dinner with Garganos. It was the Garganos in their guest room watching TV because last week in the fight with Tegan in their home, they had their TV broken and they got spaghetti all over the fucking house and it's a mess, so they have to watch TV in the guest room. Gargano's going to order a new TV right there on the spot and send Tegan the bill, and Candice talks a little bit about the Battle Royal and stuff. That was a funny segment. Always fun to watch their Garganos in their home. It never gets old. Holy shit, was this a good tag team match. Breezango retaining against Imperium. Part of me was worried they were going to drop the tag belts back to Imperium, but they didn't, and that was a great tag match. And that was one thing that, you know, the Wednesday night shows this week had a couple things in common, and one of them was the tag team matches. They were both really good. So there was an excellent one with FTR and Jurassic Express, and I really enjoyed Breezango and Imperium here, so that was great. We had Austin Theory coming out to cut a little cocky-ass, pricky promo. He's interrupted by Kushida. They have a match, and Kushida taps him out. I enjoyed that. Really interesting little bromance here, potentially forming between Killian Dane and Drake Maverick. Drake wants them to be a tag team. Killian Dane wants nothing to do with him. But they have a match scheduled against the Undisputed Era, and Killian doesn't even show up for the match. Drake has got to kind of handle these guys 2-on-1 for a while. Finally, Regal makes Killian go down to the ring. Match ends in a DQ, and Killian's trying to walk away. I think it's Roderick Strong got on the mic and called him fat or something like that, and he turned around and came in the ring and kicked his ass, and then also punches Drake Maverick at the end. So they're doing the deal, which we've seen a lot in wrestling throughout history. You put two guys together that are reluctant, or at least one guy that's reluctant, and he wants nothing to do with the other. Probably one of the best examples of this would have been in like 97 when Mankind was trying to get Austin to be his partner after the whole Shawn Michaels thing, the Pick Me Steve stuff, and Austin just stunned him week after week and just treated him like shit. But eventually, you know, once he became Dude Love and they won the titles and Austin had a little bit more respect for him, I imagine that's eventually what's going to happen here, is that Killian is just going to want nothing to do with Drake, and he's going to keep pestering him, and eventually something's going to happen where Drake will save Killian, or Killian will save Drake, or Drake will earn Killian's respect. Something like that. They might come together, and we got the Dusty Classic coming up here in the future, and they could be a real good candidate to potentially win that, because the tag team scene in AEW is the weakest it's ever been. Am I out of line saying that? I mean, it feels like the tag team division has always been solid in NXT. And it's probably the weakest it's ever been right at this moment, with Breezango being the champions and stuff. So NXT needs to up their tag team game. It's a weird-looking team, but who knows? We've seen weirder-looking teams work out and become one of the best teams in history. So we will see. And also, we had William Regal announcing a number one contenders match for next week to determine Finn Balor's next challenger. Some sort of weird deal. It's kind of like an elimination chamber where you're going to have entrants coming in periodically, but they're not going to be locked in booths. They're just going to come in one at a time. So a little bit of combination like elimination chamber, war games type of thing. And then from there, it's an elimination process until there's only one man left standing. So that'll be taking place next week, and the winner will face Finn Balor for the title next. And in the main event, we had another really solid match with Damian Priest taking on Timothy Thatcher. Was this for the North American title or not? I can't remember. Thatcher's a guy that I would love to see hold that title one day, but Priest kind of just won it. He needs to roll with it for a while. Got the win here in a really solid match. I didn't expect it to really go any other way, but it was a really solid main event. So NXT was a solid show, but clearly, you know, just a different looking show than AEW. At this point, I think AEW Dynamite would be much better served going up head-to-head against SmackDown or Raw. I think they would have a legitimate shot to beat them in the ratings. Yes, beat them. I said it. I think it could be done. It's just crazy how bad Raw and shit is. So anyway, NXT was solid, and they were up against a pretty solid AEW. Now, the ratings are in as well. Dynamite got 886,000, while NXT got 689,000. And it should probably add a little bit more to the rumors of potentially NXT moving to Tuesday nights. What do you guys think? Do you think that would be a good move for them? Would you consider NXT moving to Tuesday nights to be a loss or to be a failure? I know AEW will brag about this like crazy. Jericho even said, I think on a Saturday night stream, that NXT should move to Tuesdays because it's embarrassing for them at this point, which is not really true. They're not getting killed in the ratings. These are still very close ratings. You know, Raw and Nitro, you know, there'd be difference gaps between, you know, like 1 million, 2 million, sometimes even 3 million viewers. Here, we're talking about just 100,000 or so at a time, depending on who's winning in the ratings here. So I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's embarrassing for NXT, but when you see the kind of numbers that both shows do when they are unopposed, I think it would probably be a smart move business-wise, or at least for the USA Network, to move them. But as a wrestling fan, I want to keep the Wednesday Night Wars a little longer. I'm in no hurry to see them end, but it feels like the writing's on the wall almost. We've been hearing a lot of reports about that possibility, and I think it's only a matter of time before the decision is made. But for the time being, wars are fun. I enjoyed thoroughly the Monday Night Wars, and so far I've enjoyed the Wednesday Night Wars as well, and I don't necessarily want to see them end. But we're in a different era now, and things are different, and now it's probably more about ratings and advertising, business, and things like that. And USA might make the move. USA might pull the trigger. They might be the one to make the decision here. Say, we don't care what you want to do, WWE. We don't care if you want to go head-to-head with them to prove a point. We can make more money if you move to this day. So I can kind of see them doing that as well. We'll see. I just don't know. I think most of the fans agree they should move. But I like the wars, you know. Guys, do me a favor, by the way, and smash that thumbs up button for me, since we have kind of a low audience in here for this Saturday's podcast. Yeah, wrestling wars are fun, I should say, Naveed. Yeah, don't quote me on that. Wars are fun. Wrestling wars are fun, because they are. They're a lot of fun. I lived through the best one. It was in real time. It was great. So I want to recreate that. And Wednesdays have been fun. But I think it's like almost too early to move yet. I'm not ready. But if they do, that might be a good thing in terms of how AEW is compared, because I don't think AEW needs to be compared to NXT. You know, I think they should be compared to more of a Raw or SmackDown, because this is AEW's top roster, and they should be going up against WWE's top roster. And when you compare the type of shows, I mean, when you compare the talent, there's no comparison. WWE's got the best talent. But AEW Dynamite is a far better show than Raw, right? You can make the argument that it's not always better than NXT, but as far as being better than Raw, oh, fuck yeah, it is. By a mile. By 10 miles. You know, so I think that a move to Monday would be fun. 10 years ago, I thought TNA was absolutely crazy for moving their show to Monday night, even though at that time Raw was not setting the world on fire either. Fans were sick of John Cena and all the same old nonsense and everything, but still, they weren't going to come anywhere close, and I knew it. They were not going to be able to compete with that. This Dynamite, however, I think is a completely different story. They wouldn't do that again. Just the same reason why NXT would move to Tuesdays is the same reason why AEW will not move to Mondays. But imagine if they were. Imagine if they were on Mondays, the damage they would do to Monday Night Raw. And imagine how lucky we would be as fans, because the damage they would do to Raw would force Raw to not suck. And we'd have two awesome shows on Monday nights again. So, you know, AEW going over there would force WWE to stop phoning in these Monday Night Raws and putting us to sleep, and actually trying and doing things instead of giving us Apollo Crews versus Shelton Benjamin for the 16th week in a row. So I would love to see AEW compete more with Raw or SmackDown, a show that consistently frustrates us, where NXT rarely does. NXT is never perfect, but you don't hear the complaints about NXT that you do about Raw or SmackDown, and I think that's where AEW can come in and hit them and do some serious damage. Them going up against the one branch of WWE that's actually somewhat respected by the fans is probably not what AEW wants to go after anyway. They need to target Raw, and they need to say, you know what, it doesn't matter how much talent you have. It matters how how much passion and creativity you have into putting on a good show. WWE found themselves in a similar situation, I'd say around 97, probably 97 and 98. Well, by 98, they were already winning. I'd say 97 was the best example of that, because I think WCW had the stronger roster. You know, the NWO was in full force. They had all the legends, Hogan, Savage, Piper. They had the Cruiserweight division. They had up-and-coming stars like Jericho and Benoit and Eddie. Everybody was in WCW. Everybody. Raven, Bam Bam Bigelow. I mean, they were all there. Everybody. And I feel at that time that even though WCW had the bigger names and the better talent, WWE was putting on far better shows, you know, riding off, you know, the strength of the Canada-USA feud and things like that, to where even though, you know, the top of the roster was super strong, Brett, Shawn, Austin, Taker, Kane, guys like that, but the undercard, it was a lot of Bariquas and a lot of DOA and a lot of Truth Commission and a lot of just oddities and just shit, you know, just not real strong talent, but I feel like they had the far better show kind of thing. So I kind of think that AEW finds themselves in that situation now, to where, yes, they have good talent, but it's nothing compared to WWE's whole roster, but it's what they're doing more with their talent than what WWE is doing with theirs. And that's why Dynamite comes off as such a good, action-packed, fun show. And on Wednesday, Jesus Christ, this thing started strong and finished crazy strong. So we'll run through a lot of the results here, and then I'll cruise back and knock out some super chats. So Dynamite opened up with a fabulous tag team match with FTR taking on Jurassic Express. Prior to the match starting, the Young Bucks, who have kind of been heelish, and they even got fined for an attack on a referee a week or so ago or whatever, they come out to the ring. They don't say anything. They just get in the ring. They double super kick the referee, and then they walk away. And as they're walking away and they go through, well, I don't know, is it even called Gorilla in AEW? I don't know what they call their gorilla, but they walk through there. Tony Khan is sitting there like wearing a t-shirt, just sitting at the monitor. Maybe they'll call it the Tony. Khan is sitting there, and they take a stack of cash and they throw it at him, basically like paying their fine. So that was kind of cool to see Tony Khan just kind of sitting there like I'm sitting in my house. I've got like workout pants on and a t-shirt. I'm glad that at least if he's going to be at work and he's going to be involved in production, might as well be comfortable. No reason to wear a tie doing that shit. So I kind of got a kick out of that. And the match between the two, after all the referee shenanigans were over and the Bucks paid their fine, match gets underway and was a lot of fun. FTR, of course, got the win in the end, pinning Jungle Boy. And, you know, they were talking smack all day on Twitter about the match, you know, how they're going to show these bottom feeders, Jurassic Express, how it's done and all that. But Lucha and Jungle still put up a good fight and came really close to beating FTR. But they got the win. They celebrated with Tully, and I'm loving that team and that package and their cockiness and how great they think they are. They just think they are God's gift to tag team wrestling. If you don't believe them, just ask them. We had Matt Hardy being attacked backstage. I don't know if this is a little injury angle to kind of keep him off TV for a couple of more weeks or whatever. He was just found to be laid out backstage. Jake Hager and Jericho approach him. Jericho's got a bat. And he's like, oh, man, what's wrong? You having trouble breathing or something like that? So they basically made it known that they were involved in that beatdown. So we'll see where that leads. We had Adam Page taking on Frankie Kazarian. Kenny Omega was on commentary for this, you know, talking up his issue with Hangman Page. Talks a little bit of shit about him. Even when Page starts mounting a comeback, Omega said something like, wow, I can't believe he's doing this good or whatever. But it was also kind of like nonchalant and casual about the whole thing, even after the match was over. Kenny Omega just kind of walked away and didn't really pay Adam Page any mind at all. Page did get the win there over Kazarian in a rematch from the Jericho Cruise. Devlin, were you there? I think it was on the last day, and Page and Kazarian had the drinking game or the drinking contest. Or no, drinking match. It was best 2 out of 3 falls drinking match to where they would chug a beer. And I think it wound up in a tie. I know that Kazarian won the first fall. And then when Hangman outdrank him in the second fall, Kazarian claimed that Hangman pulled the tights, which I thought was funny. So this is an actual fight now, rematch from the Cruise. And Page got the win. And we'll see, you know, this is heading towards a Page and Omega clash. We know that. But we still don't totally know what side, you know, who's going to be heel and babyface here. Right now, it's looking like it's going to be more Omega, where at first it looked like it was more Page. Page seems a little bit more remorseful in his demeanor now. Even after the match, he kind of looks sad, that Omega that walked away and he might go drown himself in some sorrows, in some beer or whatever. I don't know, but I'm interested to see when this finally happens and we get a match between these two and the program kicks off, what the vibe will be like. But I'm enjoying it so far, and I'm glad that both guys are moving on from that tag team, because I think both of them can really strengthen the singles roster in AEW. So I'm ready for that to start happening. MJF won a squash against some guy, Sean Dean. Wasn't too familiar with him. Got on the mic after, talked a little bit about potentially forming, or joining, I should say, a faction, maybe a group. Maybe he's looking to form his own. Maybe he's looking to join an already existing one, which is weird that he's bringing this up, because I thought the initial, or the current story right now, was going to be with him continuing to abuse Wardlow. And at some point, Wardlow just going full Alex Riley and destroying MJF and kind of moving into a feud with him. So this might be setting up for that if MJF is looking to, and MJF might know this too. Maybe MJF's character can see that Wardlow's going to kill him soon, or MJF's character has decided that he doesn't want Wardlow, but he knows that firing him without any backup could get him killed. So maybe MJF is looking for some preemptive backup, looking to join a group. That way, when he and Wardlow do implode, he's got some guys that can stand up for him and watch his back, or try to fight off a very, very angry Wardlow. So we'll see where that goes. In terms of MJF in a faction, though, I can't see him being in any faction that he's not the leader of. He does way too much talking and shit talking and all that. He's got to be the mouthpiece. He's got to be the leader and the figurehead of any faction. If he just joins the inner circle, that would be strange. Unless, maybe they did the thing with Jericho and MJF last week where they pulled up in the SUVs and they kind of had some, they said nice things to each other and then they walked away and insulted each other in the split screen there. I don't know what Jericho's future is going to be. I don't know if Jericho wants to continue to wrestle every week on Dynamite. I know right now that COVID is preventing anybody from touring or anything like that. But if he's got anything to do with Fozzy, or if he's got to record an album, or if he's got anything that needs to have him take a couple of months off, maybe MJF could be like the placeholder or the new leader of Inner Circle in Jericho's absence. I don't know why any of those guys would listen to MJF, but maybe that could work. But otherwise, I think he's got to lead his own and not join any. He certainly wouldn't join the Dark Order or whatever Dustin and QT's group is called. I don't know. Excuse me. But whatever he does, I think he's got to be the leader of his own. So we'll see where they go with that. But eventually, I think this is also going to lead for a singles run for Wardlow as well. We had an Eddie Kingston promo, this very strange faction that he seems to have formed for himself with the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and Blade. This is completely out of nowhere. It's such a random mixture of guys. They don't match. They don't look right together. But Eddie Kingston is the glue that keeps it together with these promos. Very good stuff. Came out there and talked all sorts of shit on the mic and gave us a little cliffhanger when he singled out the Blade at the end. He said something to him like, you need to get your house in order. It's you next or whatever, and kind of pointed at him and walked away. And we don't even know what that's referring to. No idea why he said that to Blade or what that means, or if if this whole little faction is meant to implode and get Blade over as a single star. I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this. It's weird, but it's oddly enjoyable just because of how good Eddie Kingston is on the mic and how entertaining he can be. So I'm into it, even though I shouldn't be into it on paper. You know what I mean? Next up, we had a tag team match, Chris Jericho and Jake Hager, the newly formed team, who have announced to the fans they do have aspirations of challenging for the tag team titles at some point. They defeated the Private Party in a pretty decent little match. Jericho got the win. He hit the Judas effect on Isaiah Cassidy for the win. Continued to attack Cassidy after the match until Mark Quinn came in and hit Jericho with a Pele kick and sent Jericho out. And I got to say, I even put this on Twitter on Wednesday, is that since Jericho has been in AEW, he's worked with like a lot of talent. Maybe not when he was world champion at first, in that first like 3 months or 4 months he was champion, because he was champion. But after that, and even during that, he's been in the ring with a lot of guys and a lot of young guys, and I argue that every single one of them have benefited, win or lose. It's not a loss if you lose to Jericho. Jericho's in there to, try to pass on knowledge and to work with guys and put them over. He gives them a lot. He gives all these guys an awful lot in their matches and a lot of offense, and even if he wins sometimes, he's still elevating them and giving them, moments to shine at the same time. And I think that's what a veteran in his position should be doing. And that's why I think that's why I respect Jericho in AEW so much, because he had his run on top. He was their inaugural champion to get the ball rolling with the company. He passed the torch to Moxley and said, all right, you're in your prime. You take the title here. I'm going to do my Jericho thing with other guys on the roster. And he's worked with people like Pineapple Pete, had a random match with him on Dynamite. He's worked 3 times with Orange Cassidy, working with teams like the Private Party here. And you guys can probably think of others that he's been in the ring with sporadically on Dynamite, and even, having the little alliance with Sammy Guevara as La Sex Gods, whether he's teaming with them or whether he's facing them. Everybody that Jericho is associated with in AEW has benefited from working with him. And I think that's admirable for a veteran and a legend in his position to come in and what I feel like is legitimately giving back. Even when he's winning, he's giving back. He's putting him over. He's working with him, giving him offense. He even, let Orange Cassidy beat him in the rubber match in the Mimosa Mayhem battle or whatever. So I like what Jericho's doing right now in AEW. He kind of, he's gone through different levels. He was on top as the champion, and then he was, leader of the Inner Circle, and that was such a big deal. He's still with the Inner Circle, but now even taking another step back in the tag team ranks now, so he can work with a lot of these young guys. He probably has a ton of knowledge to pass on. Imagine if you were a 26-year-old wrestler and you've had some independent shots, never been in WWE before. This is the farthest you've made it, and you get to go in the ring with Chris Jericho. Imagine like before and after the match backstage, being able to talk to him and learn from him and pick his brain, and and be able to just be in the ring with somebody like him and learn. I think is an excellent position for Jericho to be in, and I think he can do that for as long as he's willing to, as long as his body is willing to allow him to wrestle, which probably isn't going to be that much longer. He can be in there just working with all sorts of guys and having all sorts of new matches, and that's what I like to see him doing, instead of just being the same old Jericho, where there's really no such thing. That's one thing about Jericho. He's changed so much throughout his career and evolved. There's never been a same old Jericho, and I love what he does in AEW. I think it's good stuff. We had a really interesting women's match with Thunder Rosa and Ivelisse. Now, fans got reported, and I didn't notice this on Wednesday. I thought the match was good because I was kind of watching it, and I thought the match was really good. Probably one of the better women's matches that I've seen in AEW the entire time since they've been around. It was really good. I think Thunder Rosa is an excellent female to have on the roster there. Really helps elevate the women's division. And Ivelisse here is pretty good as well, but apparently there was some backstage heat. Apparently they had some issues with each other backstage, and that spilled over into the ring a little bit, and they were laying in some really, really stiff shots on each other. Now, AEW, on their YouTube channel, they don't really have any of that in there. They have like maybe the last 4 minutes of the match, which was really good, and despite all of that, and despite the stiffness of it, it still turned out to be a really good match, and Thunder Rosa beat her with the Tombstone Piledriver. And I thought it was an interesting story. Also, I didn't know this. Apparently, Ivelisse just lost her house. It burned down, so that's very sad. So there's a lot of kind of maybe internal turmoil right now in the with some of the women in AEW, but we'll continue to keep our eye on that. But I know Thunder Rosa, she's probably coming in there. I don't know. She's a sweetheart, so I don't want to say she's got a chip on her shoulder or anything like that, but there was reports that she's kind of trying to take the role of a locker room leader, because she is a champion, the NWA champion, but she is one of the best they have there, and they don't really have a bona fide locker room leader yet in the women's division. They really don't. They got Britt Baker, and they got some there that have experience and stuff, but they don't really have that. And so maybe Thunder Rosa was rubbing people the wrong way. I don't know. But they had a little beef with each other, and took it into the ring a little bit, but still a really good match, and that's a plus. I said that all along. I mean, I can't remember who it was that was complaining about Thunder Rosa coming in. They're like, "Oh man, why are they bringing her in?" I'm like, "Well, why not? you gotta elevate your division somehow, and the women's division needs all the help it can get and needs some work. And she's an excellent asset, especially with NWA kind of being not running right now and being somewhat defunct because of the COVID stuff. Bring her in. She's a hell of a talent. And now you get the NWA title there. After she beat Ivelisse, Diamante attacked her, and then Hikaru Shida, who was on the outside of the ring watching, hopped the railing and came in and made the save and kind of stared at Thunder Rosa's NWA belt. So maybe since Thunder Rosa got a shot against Shida, maybe Shida now in turn will get a shot against Thunder Rosa's belt, and maybe they can trade some victories. You know, Shida won when her belt was on the line, and then maybe Thunder Rosa wins when her belt is on the line. That might lead to a rubber match and potentially a unification. Maybe. I don't know. What do you guys think? That's what I think might happen there, based on the ending of that match. We saw Miro again. He's with Kip Sabian. He's like lifting weights, and he takes his shirt off and everything. He's flexing while Kip Sabian's running his mouth. And Miro is saying that he's going to throw Kip Sabian a fantastic bachelor party. I would attend any bachelor party thrown by Miro. Oh, man, how fun would that be? He'd be great. Again, I think this is a lot of people have been complaining about this alliance. I've been saying right from the start that I think this is just the way to introduce Miro. This is not going to last. I cannot see him and Kip Sabian being not a team, but being friends on camera for a long time. I think Miro's going to wind up attacking him or something like that. I think this is also a way to introduce the nickname of Miro. I love it. The best man. Not necessarily the best man at the wedding, but the best man in general. I am the best man. I think that's a great nickname for Miro, and this whole wedding angle is probably just a way to get that over. He'll wind up destroying Kip Sabian or something like that, and then just go on to be the best man Miro, and we hardly will ever look back and think about this again. But then again, you know, maybe Kip can always be the little sidekick of Miro, and it might be a friendship that lasts for years to come. I don't know. But I think this is mostly just a way to get Miro introduced onto the scene and to establish his name and his nickname, and that's probably it. I'm not really looking at this as a step down for Miro yet because he hasn't done anything yet. So let's see what happens with the wedding and how all that goes down and what Miro does from there. But just good to see him there, you know. Interesting stuff here. We had AEW earlier on in the day announced that they have officially signed Will Hobbs to a contract. I think he's worked a couple of matches, right, in the last couple of months there, so he's been around. He officially signed his contract earlier on in the day on Wednesday to a multi-year deal or something like that with AEW, so that's good. And Archer and Jake come out along with Taz for a promo. Archer's kicking the crap out of somebody while Jake's talking as usual. And there's a big 6-man match next week with Lance Archer and a couple of guys taking on Jon Moxley and a couple of guys. Now, the two guys that Archer is going to team with is going to be Ricky Starks and Brian Cage, represented by Taz. Taz and Jake have worked out a little agreement that said that they will be his partners if Archer beats Moxley for the title, that he gives Brian Cage the first shot. So they got that little agreement worked out between the two of them. And then Moxley comes out, his music hits, he starts coming down through the crowd. He's going to announce his tag team partners, but Ricky Starks and Brian Cage are hiding in the crowd. They hop over the railing and they nail him. They start beating the shit out of him, and that's when Will Hobbs shows up to reveal that he is going to be one of Moxley's partners. They run those guys off, and Moxley, I think he looks into the camera and calls out Darby Allin to show up next week and join himself and Hobbs in that 6-man. So that'll be set for next week. Archer, Ricky Starks, Brian Cage taking on Moxley, Will Hobbs, and Darby Allin. That should be a fun 6-man, and I'm guessing that will likely be the main event. But when it comes to multi-man matches and main events, it does not get any better than the parking lot brawl that main evented Dynamite this week. This thing was fantastic. Now, I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not calling it the greatest match in history. I'm not giving it 5 stars like I think Meltzer did. But damn, this was good. And what I liked about it is that it was action-packed from top to bottom, and it just started out strong. A lot of these, type of parking lot brawls, you have it's all basically centered around spots. And sometimes you can have these long gaps of deadness where not a lot is going on. That was not the case here. You had the cars kind of circled in the parking lot there. WWE's done a similar match where all the cars are kind of around like that. And you had Best Friends were there waiting. By the way, it's Best Friends taking on Proud and Powerful in the parking lot fight, I should say. Proud and Powerful show up. Santana and Ortiz, they show up kind of wearing like Dead Presidents themed makeup, which was cool. And immediately, bell rings, bam, and they just jump on each other. And I like that because it didn't start out with a whole bunch of just trading fists and brawling, and that goes on for a couple of minutes before anything happens. It was like right off the bat. You thought that these 4 guys legitimately hated each other. They came together and immediately started throwing and slamming each other onto the cars and the automobiles that were surrounding the place. Ortiz right off the bat, I mean, what, maybe a minute, maybe two, not even 2 minutes. I'd say 1 minute into the match, Ortiz finds himself under the hood of a car, and he's just being smashed. I think Trent's grabbed the hood. Have you ever much that hurt? Unless that was a gimmicked hood, I don't know. I don't know if it was a shoot hood or a worked hood, but if any of you have ever lifted up your hood to check your engine or change your oil or something, you know how heavy those fucking things are, and they were just squashing the shit out of poor Ortiz. Then, after they're done slamming him in there, they leave him in there, and both Chucky and Trent take turns sentoning themselves onto the hood, squashing Ortiz in the car, and that was in the first 2 fucking minutes of the match. So you thought he was dead. Trent at that point pulls out a 2x4, and he's trying to nail, I think, Santana with it. It breaks and flies up and catches him in the face. And throughout the rest of the match, you saw a lot of blood around, I believe his left eye, actually, is where it was. So he's got a busted open face now. Another great shot that was wonderful is Santana gets Trent down. There's a pickup truck, and the bed of the truck, the door of the truck bed is open. And he does the deal, you know where they do the move in the ring where you slingshot the guy under the bottom rope and he catches his throat on the bottom rope? He did that, but on the truck bed. So Trent comes flying up and he just nails face first the bed of the truck. It goes flying. That was a great spot. A lot of blood everywhere. You got blood on Ortiz's elbow because he took a fucking beating. You got blood on Santana's face, which was combining with the white makeup to make it look pink. You had Trent's eye busted open, and Trent would experience a lot more blood here soon after that. They get one of those large guardrails, you know, that you'd see in a 1990s wrestling show. They bridge it on the car and the ground, and Ortiz takes a suplex onto that, and the guardrail just sickening crunch. I mean, it just bends. Oh my God, horrible. Ortiz would then powerbomb. What the hell? I got written down here. Oh yeah. So I forgot who it was. It was Trent. Trent took both of these power bombs, right? Yeah, he did. So the only thing I didn't like about this is that Ortiz took a shit ton of damage in the beginning of the match, and he somehow managed to recover from this. So after he took all of the hood shots, and he got double sentoned, and then he got squashed through the guardrail, he somehow finds a way to powerbomb Trent on top of the car. They find themselves on top of the car, and Trent gets powerbombed right on top of it. Then Santana and Ortiz team up, grab Trent, and double powerbomb him in probably the spot of the match. The double powerbomb him right through the windshield of the car. And it ain't no gimmicked windshield either. I mean, they were walking up and down that thing prior, and Trent's back slams into it. The windshield bends, you know, because they're not designed to really break and shatter because it's got, you know, the protection behind it. But the glass still shatters in a million pieces and it stays together while just slicing and dicing up the back of Trent. He's bloody. Blood is just coming all down his back. It looked disgusting. And he's rolling on the pavement, and the blood is smearing on the pavement. This was just amazing stuff, and it never stopped. You never had a breather. Where in a lot of these type of matches, after a big spot, you get this little lull until they set up for the next big spot. That was one of the biggest positives, I think, to this match, is that they didn't look like they were planning all of these spots. It looked authentic. It looked spontaneous. It looked like when they did things like slamming Ortiz in the hood, it looked like they just came up with it on the spot, and they didn't take 5.5 years to set it up, you know, like we see with so many other matches like this. That's what I took away from this, is how, like, just real it felt. Like it was just constant fighting. So anyway, poor Trent is now dead after that windshield spot. Kind of the finish of the match here sees Santana pull out a lead pipe. He's got his hands on a lead pipe, and Chuck Taylor is leaning up against the back of a car, and he's got nowhere to go. He's down, he's hurt, he's injured. Santana's over him with the lead pipe, and then the trunk of the car opens up, and it's Orange Cassidy. He comes flying out and nails Santana with the orange punch, which was great, and he had a steel chain wrapped around his fist. So he knocks Santana right out with the orange punch, allowing Trent to come to, and he grabs... earlier on, they had set up like a piece of plywood over the truck bed or something, like over top of the truck bed. So Trent grabs Ortiz, picks him up, takes him on top of the truck, like the top part of the truck of the cabin, and gives him that little package pile driver thing off of that through the plywood into the bed of the truck, to where not only does he have both of Ortiz's legs hooked, but the plywood has now come up and has basically just trapped him. Ortiz has nowhere to go. Referee counts 1, 2, 3, and the best friends win one hell of a parking lot fight. That was so fun. It wasn't drawn out. Didn't take forever. I want to say this match went about 14 minutes, which was more than enough, and it was action-packed from top to bottom. Easily one of the most fun matches of the year. I'm not going to say it was the greatest or the best or anything like that, but it was one of the more memorable matches that Dynamite's had all year long, since their existence, really, and they've had a lot of them. And this one's way up there. And what I liked about this one, unlike the Stadium Stampede and some of the off-site matches that WWE has done, those are longer. There's a lot going on. There's so much to keep up with. And like I said, a lot of it is just setting up spots, moving from one planned spot to the next planned spot. This flowed just so much better. It felt like a real fight at times, felt like a real brawl, had some realism to it. And even JR was saying on commentary that maybe he underestimated the fighting and brawling abilities of a Trent and a Chuck based on, their characters and their gimmicks and stuff. And he goes, I stand corrected. They're badass boys. And they beat Proud and Powerful here. After the match, they hopped into Sue's van. Sue pulls up with her lovely white van. She's got her hair bleached blonde now. And Cassidy rides shotgun while Chuck gets in the van. And I think Trent goes over to the driver's side and gives his mom a hug. And Shivani, with the most random line of the night, he just yells out, "She's hugging her bloody son," which just cracked me up. I don't know why that made me laugh so hard. It just did. He hugs his mom. Then he gets into the back of the van. They close the door. They start to drive away. And after Sue drives a few feet, she stops, sticks her hand out the window, and flips the bird to Proud and Powerful, getting final revenge over them for all the horrible things they did to her and her automobile, bleaching the luggage of Trent and Chuck. This was a long time coming for them, and they got what they deserved here. And Sue was able to flip them off in the end. Great stuff all the way around. This is why I say this a lot about AEW Dynamite, is that what I like about the show is it gives me more of the well-rounded wrestling show, because you expect a lot out of a pro wrestling show. It can be violent, it can be fun, it can be wacky, it can be adventurous, it can be all of these things. NXT seems to have kind of one general direction or arrow of flow to their shows and stuff, where Dynamite gives you a variety. Dynamite gives you multiple things on the show that if you're watching with a family, your daughter will like this, your son will like this, your mom will like that, your dad will like that. There's something in there for everybody, and that's what I like about a wrestling show. This thing was just bonkers, man. This was just completely bonkers, and I loved it. And it looked like, it was just well put together, and whoever, was responsible for booking that match, whoever the agent for that match was, or however these two teams came together and came up with all these spots, it was executed, I think, to perfection, because like I said, a lot of times when you have these big elaborate spots, they take a while to set up. And sometimes, it doesn't look very good. This all just looked phenomenal, and I thought the match was great. And hands down, I'm picking Dynamite as the better show this week. NXT was solid, gave me some good wrestling, but this gave me wacky, crazy, bonkers adventures, and also really good wrestling as well. Just an awesome show overall. So one of my favorite Dynamites of the year easily, and definitely one of my favorite matches in AEW's history easily. Hopefully I'm not overselling it there. I saw a few people say, okay, let's not say it's the greatest match ever. It wasn't that great. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't that great. But it was still very, very good, and I enjoyed the shit out of it, man. All right, that should wrap up my Dynamite notes, and then we'll just talk a little bit about SmackDown here. But before we do that, I will go up to the chat and knock out a couple of the super chats that I missed earlier. Yeah, Michael Cuomo, I'm assuming it's a shoot hood. It could have been a worked hood if they wanted to make something a little more lightweight or fiberglass or something like that to maybe, or plastic, I should say, to slam on poor Ortiz. But if that was a real hood, that had to be ridiculously painful. His arms were all cut up and bloody, man. I think it was brutal. Just brutal. If you haven't watched that parking lot fight from Wednesday, do yourself a favor and go watch it. It's fast and it's good. I saw that Ace Shock. I did see that Sean Ross Sapp has interviewed Sue, but I have not seen it. So curious to see what she has to say there. I do think she even has some merchandise coming, which is great because that's just something random. I like it when people like Ralphus and just random people get over. Trent's mom. Who would have thought? Sue getting over in AEW. That's why wrestling can be so fun, because random things like that can happen that you never expect. You never expect a wrestler's mom to have a t-shirt. And I'll tell you this, Trent's mom, I'll take Trent's mom over Judy Bagwell any day of the week. That's for sure. That would be a good match. Judy Bagwell versus Sue. Sue would whoop her ass. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Is Judy still with us? Judy may have passed away. So I'm sorry, didn't mean to insult her there. But I think if Judy was in her prime and she faced Sue, I think Sue would win. All right, let's talk about SmackDown last night, too, before I got to roll out of here. I still got a little bit of time left. Good 30 minutes here to talk about last night's SmackDown. I had to work. I asked you guys for some updates on it on Twitter, and most of you were not giving the show really high marks. A couple of good things happened, but most of you were saying it was largely skippable. But after watching it, I feel like there's definitely some significant things to talk about here, and a couple of bright spots that I really did like. And we'll run through the Clash of Champions card here as well once we're done. But the show opens up with a Moment of Bliss segment, kind of a cringy Moment of Bliss with Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. So Nikki and her, I thought the friendship was over when Alexa Bliss threw down the mug, but apparently, they've kind of come back together here. Cross questions Alexa Bliss, like, what's wrong with you? You haven't been yourself. And Bliss is just like, I can't explain it, or I don't want to talk about it, or whatever. Lacey Evans then comes out, who I guess now is back to being a heel again. I don't know why they turned her face to begin with. They should have just left her like this the whole time. She starts talking shit to both of them, which leads to a match with Nikki Cross after the commercial break. We come back. It's Nikki and Lacey, I believe. Alexa Bliss is on commentary for this, and she's normal Alexa Bliss. I guess the spell or the influence that the Fiend has on her only comes sporadically. Otherwise, she's relatively normal Alexa. She was Alexa on commentary, cheering on Nikki Cross, even wanted her to win. And luckily, Nikki did, because she's got a title match coming up against Bayley. I did not want to see her drop a match here or have it be a disqualification. Nikki needs a win here, and she did. She beat Lacey clean with her little top rope neckbreaker finisher move, got the pin there, won the match, and then after the match, Lacey is pissed at Alexa Bliss. She's talking shit to her at the announce table. Bliss attacks her and hits her with a Sister Abigail, much like she did to Nikki Cross last week. On SmackDown, she hits Lacey with the Sister Abigail and then just kind of walks off in the trance. And then backstage, I think Kayla Braxton is asking her, I think Nikki is even in tow, saying, what's going on with you? And she just kind of looks straight into space and just walks away. And that's it. So Nikki did question her why she hit her with the Sister Abigail, or however she says it in her funny little accent. And Alexa didn't really have a very good explanation for her, and then she kind of did the whole thing again with Lacey Evans. So we'll see. I like this. I thought the segments here were a little cheesy, but I do like the fact that Alexa is going to have more to do with the Fiend in the future. We saw no Funhouse tonight, but it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out with Alexa. I like the direction they're going with that, but I didn't like the way any of this was really executed on SmackDown last night. We had a Sasha Banks promo. She's back. She cut a promo from the Performance Center, complete with neck brace. I think neck brace might be taken a little bit too far, but I just always think of Bobby Heenan, because Bobby Heenan would always rock the neck braces or whatever. So, I mean, after, Bayley just really put a hurting on her a couple weeks back, she's got to sell the injury. I get it, or whatever, but neck braces always look silly to me because I can never not envision Bobby Heenan or it always just feels like villains in movies too. Always like wear neck braces and stuff. It just doesn't, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the neck braces. But anyway, she talks about her history with Bayley, tries to do her best to be as emotional about it as possible, and even tries to cry a little bit, but goes on to say that she kind of knew that she was being used, and she calls Bayley an idiot, and she's going to take the title from her and all of that. And as soon as she's done running her down, calling her naive and an idiot, and that she's going to have to answer to her, Bayley is there at the PC, lurking around. She nails Sasha Banks in the back with a chair. Sasha goes down. Bayley attacks her some more, puts her head back in the chair again, and about to do another Pillman deal to her neck until security comes in and stops her. So that's a second beatdown now for Sasha Banks. I like that because, like we said earlier on at the beginning of the show, they got to set up here for a Hell in the Cell match between these two. It has to be that. There's no other match you can do at this point between Sasha and Bayley besides Hell in the Cell, and that is not until October 25th. In the meantime, Bayley has got to face and defeat Nikki Cross at Clash of Champions. She is not going to drop that belt to Nikki Cross. even if Sasha shows up and tries to cost her the title, you don't want to do that. Bayley needs to keep the belt. It needs to be passed to Sasha Banks, and that, I think, needs to happen in a Hell in a Cell. So with Sasha now being attacked again, it allows you the opportunity to stretch this out a little bit longer, keep her off TV again, or at least keep her out of the ring. Maybe she's on TV doing interviews, maybe a sit-down at-home interview with Kayla Braxton or Charlie Caruso or Michael Cole or something like that, where she won't be on the show in the Thunderdome physically, but we'll have a from-home interview or something like that, is what I guess they're going to do the next time she appears. And then after that, she will appear on TV. Then she'll be a little bit better, more healed. She'll be able to attack Bayley, and we can still leave 2 or 3 weeks left for setup to Hell in a Cell, the big Hell in a Cell match, which I am guessing they're going to do between the two of them. So good stuff there. I'm glad that they're not rushing the match and getting it done at Clash of Champions. That's a good move there. I talked earlier on, we mentioned that when I think it was Devlin asked us about the mystery woman in the vignettes on SmackDown. And I said earlier, even though we're all assuming this is going to be Carmella, and the one from last week definitely looked like Carmella, the one from last night did not. And I had said that it looked like Sasha Banks to me because she quickly turned her head and we got a brief little view of like a quarter, or maybe a fifth of her face, just a little diagonal over the forehead there. And it looked like there was some blue hair underneath the blonde. That was either the lighting or, maybe it's a blonde wig over top of Sasha's blue hair. I don't know, but it definitely did not look to be Carmella last night. So we'll see. We'll keep our eye on this mystery woman. There's also talked about that it being Eva Marie or something. I don't think it'll be her either. And it might wind up being Carmella. They just might have used a stand-in here. They might have used Sasha Banks to stand in the vignette just to throw off the fans. I don't know, but it definitely didn't look like Carmella last night to me. We also saw Big E return. Big E, of course, was lured into attack last week by a security guard, and Sheamus and Corbin are talking to the security guard. I think it's Sheamus walks out to his car or something like that to find Big E standing there in an event worker gear or whatever. He turns around to reveal that he's Big E. He attacks. Sheamus and Cesaro get the hell out of there, leaving the poor security guard all by himself with Big E, who just kills him, absolutely murders him. And I like that. We've talked about Big E, how much of his character does he really need to change? He doesn't need to change much. Even when he was in New Day, he could fight and be nasty. They did the big compound brawl with the Wyatt family, the Hell in the Cell with the Usos. When Big E wants to throw down, he can throw down, and he's a very scary dude. And rest in peace and condolences out to that security guard's family, who I'm sure are going through a rough time right now after Big E murdered him. The saga with Otis and his briefcase continues. We had a dirt sheet segment with Miz and Morrison just running down Otis, just talking all sorts of shit about him, bragging about how they got Mandy Rose moved to Monday Night Raw, even mentioning that Ziggler is there, kind of hinting that she's probably going to leave Otis or cheat on Otis or whatever. Otis gets pissed. He comes out there and destroys both of them with the help of Tucker, who kind of arrives at the end there and helps Otis run off Miz and Morrison. Backstage later on, Otis is approached by a process server or something, and he's given some court papers, and he says, "You've been served." And he's like, "Served what? A hot dish?" A buffet says hot dish. I just laughed my ass off. So he opens it up, and it turns out, or Tucker has to point out to him that he's being sued, and he was served with a lawsuit for emotional distress, unsafe working conditions, and money in the bank negligence. That is what the Miz has served Otis with, and that's what he's going to have to defend himself over. Now, Tucker tells Otis that he needs to get a lawyer because he's got till next week to decide what he wants to do or whatever. So now Otis needs to go find himself a lawyer, and I'm guessing we're not going to get a courtroom segment, are we? We very well might. I saw a lot of people suggesting that Otis should bring in Clarence Mason. I agree. If anybody can beat the Miz's charges here, Clarence Mason can do it. So that would be a great little cameo by Clarence Mason to come in and just do something randomly there with Otis in a court setting. That might be fun. But it got me thinking, too, the way, especially the very end line, if you notice, when Otis reads all of this and gets it explained to him, Otis says, "We're in trouble." And then Tucker goes, "You're in trouble." And we've been talking all along, ever since Otis won the briefcase, if we think that Tucker could potentially turn heel, and I think he might. I think he might. I think maybe Tucker will find himself in a situation where he feels like the team is being sacrificed. It's all about Otis right now. It's all about him and the briefcase, and Mandy and the team of Heavy Machinery is kind of taking a back seat. Maybe he gets frustrated and fed up with this at some point and turns on Otis and helps Miz and Morrison screw him over even harder. Maybe he goes and has an affair with Mandy Rose himself. I don't know. But I feel like a Tucker heel turn is still possible. The only problem I see with that is that if they turn Tucker heel, all he's going to do is be beat by Otis, and how's that going to help Tucker at all? Probably not going to help him at all anyway. And we also have the whole deal with the briefcase. Something is going to happen there with the briefcase. A lot of people are expecting Otis to not be the one to cash it in, and maybe pass it along to somebody who could cash it in. But I think he could maybe keep it. I mean, I know Miz wants to get his hands on it and everything, but based on who all the champions are right now, nobody's going to successfully cash in on Roman Reigns. No fucking way. And McIntyre is a pretty strong champion on Raw, and I don't even think the briefcase can be moved over to Raw unless somebody from there gets their hands on the briefcase. And even then, I don't think anybody's really cashing in on Drew or anything like that. There's enough going on over there. So I almost think that since Roman is a heel, Otis should try to cash in his briefcase. And if Otis is worried about losing the briefcase and he's worried about losing it in a court battle, he should try to get rid of it before he even has a chance. He should try to cash it in before he even loses it to somebody else or whatever. So I can almost see Otis being dumb enough to come out there and try to challenge Roman Reigns, cashes in his briefcase, Roman spears him easily and beats him, and then that's the end of the briefcase. That would be a pretty sad ending for it, but I also think it might be the type of ending that makes the most sense. Or if maybe Otis comes out at Clash of Champions after Roman kills Jey Uso. I don't know. But I still think it would be fun, though, if he does lose it to somebody else gets their hands on it and is able to cash in. Cash-ins are always fun. I want to see a cash-in, but based on the strength of your champions right now, I don't know if we really will see one. I don't know. We'll see. Something's going to happen to Otis that's not going to be good. He is going to get his heart broken either by Tucker or by Mandy Rose or by both. We'll see. We'll see what they do with Otis. Oh my God, one of my favorite people on SmackDown right now is Sami Zayn. I love that he hasn't gotten a haircut in 9.5 months. It's fucking awesome. He's got a match against AJ Styles. And shit, what happened here? Did it end in a DQ? I forgot. Jeff Hardy ran out there and attacked, tried to beat the shit out of Sami Zayn because he has a bone to pick with him after last week. Beats the hell out of Sami and runs him off. And Jeff, there's a ladder in the ring. Jeff gets on the microphone. The triple threat ladder match, which we knew all along from the second Sami came back, we knew we were getting that match. It's now official for Clash. Sami Zayn versus AJ versus Jeff Hardy. Triple threat for the Intercontinental title. And I think it was funny, like Sami is even still considering himself the champion. I think prior to the match, he said it was a non-title match. He still is insistent that he's the Intercontinental champion, which is why a ladder match makes the most sense here, because Shawn Michaels was doing the same thing back in 1994 when he returned with the IC belt. So I'm glad that match is official now. That has show-stealing potential on it for sure. That ladder match is going to be good. And finally, the main event was another tag team match with Jey Uso teaming with his cousin Roman to take on Baron Corbin and Sheamus. Now, we saw last week Roman did not seem into this at all. He was late showing up for the match. Uso is just clueless. He's completely naive to the fact that his cousin is a different person now. They did a nice segment last night where Paul Heyman kind of narrated this nice history of the Uso and Roman family and all of that. And Jey Uso knows that he's in there with the big dog and everything, but he's still relying on the fact that, oh, they're blood and it's going to be a spirited contest and all this kind of crap. So they have the tag match with Sheamus and Baron Corbin. Roman hits Corbin with a spear. And it was brilliantly set up because the minute he hit Corbin with the spear, Jey Uso is already in the air. Jey Uso is dove off the top rope. Roman hits a spear on Corbin, and then Uso comes down with the splash and covers Corbin for the win, while Roman is standing there in like absolute disbelief. So if looks could kill, Jey Uso would be an absolute dead man in the last couple of weeks based on the way Roman is looking at him and how Uso is kind of running around celebrating, thinking all is right with the world and not realizing that he is in a world of shit come Clash of Champions. And we talked about this last week, ever since the match was made, that this has got to be a similar deal to when like Austin beat up Jim Ross in Oklahoma, right in front of his home audience. I want to see Roman Reigns beat Jey Uso into oblivion, and then after the match, annihilate him. Because the best of my knowledge, this is not a no DQ match or anything like that. So it's going to have to be a straight one-on-one match. Roman's going to have to play within the rules there. So I think he can just beat him really badly, spear him a few times, maybe even pick him up from a 2 count. I don't know. Finally beating him, and then after the match, going out and getting a chair and putting Jay out of action, maybe bloodying him up. I really think it's important we see blood here, and just beat the absolute hell out of Jey Uso, writing him off of TV until Jimmy is good to come back. And then when Jimmy comes back, the two of them can either team up to attack Roman and get revenge on Roman, or maybe swerve everybody and join Roman and make it a little new Shield headed up by Paul Heyman or something. And both Usos can be backing up Roman in this heel little faction that Paul Heyman has put together. I don't know. But I think absolutely destroying Jey Uso here at Clash of Champions is the right thing to do, because then you can keep him off of TV until his brother comes back. And then when he does, you got a couple of options there. So I certainly don't think Jey Uso is going to be walking out of Clash of Champions as the Universal Champion. And speaking of the Clash, let's run through the card here before I start answering some questions and reading some Super Chats. And then I'm going to get out of here because this was a very low audience for this Saturday. Kind of a bummer. But anyway, I appreciate the guys that are here watching us and hanging out. Thanks for being here. Clash of Champions card comes up on the 27th, 1 week from tomorrow. We've got Drew McIntyre taking on either Randy Orton or Keith Lee, although we pretty much agree that it's going to be Randy Orton. Roman Reigns defending the Universal title against Jey Uso. Jeff Hardy, like we just said a minute ago, defending the IC title against AJ Styles and Sami Zayn in a ladder match. Bayley defending the SmackDown Women's title against Nikki Cross. I think potentially we could get some Sasha interference there, but I don't want to see it. I don't want to run the risk of Bayley losing the belt. I think Bayley needs to be champion when she faces Sasha, but if Sasha wants to run out there and cost her the belt or something, maybe she could. But I would keep Sasha off TV for a little while longer and just have Bayley defeat Nikki Cross straight up. We also have Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler defending their Raw Tag Team titles against the Riot Squad. Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott. What do you guys think? Do you want to see the Riot Squad pull off an upset here? I say yeah, just to have, because Shayna and Nia can't stand each other so much. We're about to have this go on again in NXT. You're doing the same type of deal here with a large person and a little person who don't like each other. So we'll see how long this alliance between them lasts. But one thing I will say about Shayna and Nia together as a team, it's made Nia Jax somewhat more entertaining to me, because she's never really been at all. Nia Jax does nothing for me, like, at all. But they've had a couple of funny little spots on Raw Talk or whatever the hell that show is, and in the ring and backstage together, some of the little digs they take at each other. It's shown me a different side of Nia Jax that I didn't really realize was there and that I don't hate. So maybe there's a little bit more mileage you can get out of this team and a few more entertaining segments that you can do here. And plus, they are a pretty dominant team on paper, and Ruby and Liv are not. So provided we don't have any major meltdown or major implosion between Nia and Shayna, they're going to have to retain here. So I'm going to predict them to retain most likely, but we'll leave that option open. And the other match we have is also for the tag team titles. Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro defending against the Lucha House Party. And there is also one more, right? What was the Raw match I mentioned earlier? That's right, the Raw tag team titles. So there should be 3 tag team championship matches on the show, because they're doing the triple threat on Monday to determine who faces the Street Profits for the titles. So that'll be a total of 7 matches, and I don't think there's any other matches left to add. That's all the title holders, right? Well, no, we don't have a U.S. title match. Maybe Bobby Lashley wrestles someone. I don't know. That could be 8 matches. I'm guessing he will. Who's he fucking feuding with right now? You take on Ricochet or Apollo or something again? Probably. I don't know. We'll see. But I guess Lashley might have a match as well. We'll find out. So anyway, that wraps it up for my notes in the nick of time, because I only got a few minutes left before I got to get out of here. But, oh shit, my mic is cutting off? Crap. Sorry, guys. All right, well, I'm going to get out of here in a minute anyway. I feel like... Sorry about that, guys, if you're having mic issues. Let me go back and cruise here. I know I missed a lot of super chats earlier, at least a couple, and one from Antoine way a while ago. Let me find you. Oh, there you are. Antoine, if you're still here, appreciate the $5, dude, as always. A little crazy to think AEW beat Raw. Let them be on TV for a year or two, get a true base viewership, then let's see. Oh, yeah, no, I'm not saying they're going to do that at all. I'm just saying if they were on Mondays, I think they would give them a serious run for their money. Like a serious run for their money based on their ratings now. Like Raw, what is Raw getting? 1.7s? AEW is getting 1 million. So, yeah, I mean, maybe another year or two before you do something like that. They're not going to do it. That's the point, so it's a moot point anyway. But I think if AEW went to Mondays, they would have a hell of a lot better chance than Impact did back in the day. You know what I mean? Hell of a lot better chance. Clofic, C, appreciate the super chat. Sorry, I'm a half an hour behind on the live stream, but I sincerely hope Cesaro will peace out and head to AEW. There's another name. We talked about that earlier on when WrestleVotes had alluded to the fact that somebody on the roster, a decent-sized star, will not be renewing his contract when it comes up. Cesaro would be excellent. My God, he would be so good in AEW. He's another guy. We talked about him just last week, I think, going to AEW, or maybe this past week on the Raw review. We mentioned that, and I think he would be a great asset there. He wouldn't be a WWE cast-off. He'd be somebody that was grossly underutilized and could be a big deal in AEW. I would love to see that. Love to see Ricochet leave. Love to see a lot of guys leave. Michael, thanks, man. Good to see you, Michael Cuomo, for the $5. Which pro Detroit sports team will next win a championship? It might be a while. Oh, man, it might be a while. A few years back, I mean, I thought the Tigers had a chance. You know, they went to a few World Series, and they came up short in all of them. Here in the last, 10 years or so. I'd probably say the Red Wings, because the Lions have just no chance. And the Pistons, I'd say the Pistons or the Red Wings probably before Lions or Tigers, if I had to guess. But it ain't looking good for any of them, Michael. I think it's going to be a long, long time before Motown brings back a championship. The last time they had one was, I guess, 2004 with the Pistons. Did the Wings win? I think the Wings have won since then. But yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. Ha! Is it still cutting in and out? Well, I'm going to get out of here then. I'm going to go and... It ain't looking good for any of them, Michael. I think it's going to be a long, long time. Well, I don't know what's going on with my mic, guys. I'm sorry about that. This was kind of a bust podcast. We got nobody in here watching. This was one of my least favorite Winged Eagle podcasts I've ever done. I hate to shit on my own damn channel like that, but it just wasn't working out today. Mic issues, and nobody's here watching. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and get to work. I want to thank you guys for hanging out very much today. Don't forget to catch us this Monday immediately following Raw for a Raw review. We'll come up here. We'll try it again, and we'll see if we can try to improve on these numbers and this shitty mic. You guys take care. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.